You grew up eating here. You celebrated birthdays here. You even took your first date here. But guess what? Some of your favorite restaurant chains might not make it past 2026. Welcome back! If you've ever driven past a familiar logo only to see "closed" on the door, you know the feeling. And if you've been keeping up with the news, you know 2025 is shaping up to be brutal for the restaurant industry. Inflation, labor shortages, changing tastes, it's all adding up to one thing: the end of an era for some of America's most iconic chains. So grab a plate of nostalgia, or maybe just a bag of gas station chips, and let's count down the 13 restaurant chains that may be serving their last meal by 2026. Let's kick things off with number 13. Chains that were once part of our weekly routines but now barely crack the radar. Let's talk about Checkers and Rally's, a fast food chain that once had the drive-thru game on lock. You remember them, right? Big fries, bold seasoning, and that double drive-thru setup that made you feel like you were skipping the line. It was the spot for late-night cravings and quick bites when you didn't have time to sit down. But here's the thing. Checkers hasn't kept up with the times. They had a shot after the pandemic hit. No dine-in meant less overhead, right? But instead of leaning into that advantage, they kind of dropped the ball. Supply chain issues hit them hard. Ingredients keep changing, deliveries are spotty, and consistency? Forget about it. One day your burger tastes like it should, the next it feels like you're eating mystery meat. And then there's the tech side. They tried rolling out AI voice bots at the drive-thru. Sounds futuristic, right? Except they glitch. A lot. Sometimes they argue with themselves. Seriously, that doesn't exactly scream fast food of the future. Customers get frustrated, wait times go up, and suddenly McDonald's looks way more appealing. Staffing hasn't helped either. Long lines, confused employees, and not enough hands on deck make for one messy experience. Bigger chains like Wendy's and Mickey D's have better tech, better branding, and deeper pockets. So why would anyone choose Checkers? In 2024 alone, over 10% of locations shut down. Franchisees are calling it quits. And honestly, when was the last time you went there on purpose? Not because you were lost or in a rush, but because you actually wanted to. The clock's ticking. If they don't fix the tech, streamline operations, and bring something fresh to the table, Checkers might be waving goodbye sooner than we think. Let's talk about Sparrow Pizza, the greasy slice of mall nostalgia that used to hit just right after a long day of shopping. You remember it, right? That oversized pizza joint in the middle of the food court, always smelling like cheese and regret. It was the go-to spot for teens on dates, parents avoiding full meals, and anyone who thought artisanal meant extra pepperoni. But here's the sad truth. Sparrow Pizza is barely holding on. Once a staple of mall culture, it's now a victim of the very places it thrived in. Malls are dying. Fewer people are walking through those sliding doors, and when they do, they're not looking for a soggy slice from a chain that feels stuck in 2003. Sparrow tried to pivot. They opened standalone stores. They rebranded. But none of it really caught on. Why would it? The pizza scene has changed big time. Domino's and Papa John's dominate delivery. Places like MOD and Blaze offer fast casual build-your-own options with fresher ingredients and better branding. Compared to that, Sparrow still feels like an afterthought. A leftover from a time when putting cheese on dough was enough to win people over. And then there's the cost issue. Wheat prices have gone up. Cheese is more expensive. Rent in those old malls? Still high. Meanwhile, Sparrow hasn't exactly wowed anyone with innovation or upgrades. Just a tired menu, slow service, and a vibe that screams, "We forgot to evolve." Franchisees are bailing. Stores are closing quietly across the country. And unless Sparrow finds a way to jump out of the food court and into the modern pizza game, its days are definitely numbered. If you miss the taste of that thick crust and melted mozzarella, you might want to grab one last slice soon, because Sparrow may be sliced right out of the industry before we know it. Let's talk about Hard Rock Cafe, the place that used to scream rock star energy, but now just screams, "Why is this still here?" Once upon a time, walking into a Hard Rock cafe felt like stepping backstage at a concert. There were guitars on the walls, legends in the frames, and that unmistakable smell of leather, AC, and overpriced burgers. But let's be real. The shine wore off a long time ago. The food? Meh. The vibe? Frozen in 1997. And those prime spots in tourist-heavy areas that used to be a gold mine? Now they're more like financial anchors dragging the brand down. Sure, tourists still wander in. But they don't spend like they used to. They order one overpriced burger, snap a photo next to a dusty Hendrix jacket, and bounce. The younger crowd? They want something fresh, fast, and worth the money. They don't care about autographed drumsticks from bands their parents liked. Hard Rock tried to keep up. They brought in live-streamed concerts. They tinkered with localized menus, but nothing stuck. The core experience still feels like a themed dinner party no one RSVP'd to. Meanwhile, rent keeps rising, foot traffic keeps dropping, and the chain has quietly closed dozens of locations across the US, Europe, and Asia. You can almost hear the sad guitar riff playing in the background as this once iconic brand fades out. Unless they pull off a Bowie-level comeback, Hard Rock Cafe might soon be remembered less for rocking the dining scene and more for quietly fading into the background noise. Let's talk about Boston Market, the comfort food classic that used to feel like a warm hug on a plate. You remember it, right? Rotisserie chicken, mashed potatoes, and meatloaf that somehow tasted like your grandma made it, even if she didn't. It was the go-to spot when you wanted something home-style without actually cooking. But here's the problem. Boston Market is losing the battle for your dinner plate. Grocery store hot bars are offering the same kind of meals faster, cheaper, and without the wait. And let's be real, who has time to sit down for meatloaf when you can grab a pre-made meal from Whole Foods or Wegmans in half the time? It gets worse. The company's been hit with lawsuits, wage theft claims, unsafe working conditions, and reports of poor management. That kind of drama doesn't exactly make people rush to the nearest location. On top of that, foot traffic has dropped big time. Over 15% of Boston Market locations closed in 2024 alone. They tried to stay relevant. They really did. But their branding feels outdated. Their menu isn't exciting anyone. And their digital experience? Let's just say DoorDash probably makes more sense than Boston Market's own app. Unless they pull off a serious turnaround, better marketing, fresher food, and maybe even a full rebrand, this homestyle haven might go cold turkey. If you miss that classic combo tray, now might be the time to grab one last bite before it's gone for good. Let's talk about Boston Market, the place that used to feel like a home-cooked meal without the hassle. You remember it, right? Rotisserie chicken, mashed potatoes, and meatloaf that somehow tasted like comfort, even if you knew it wasn't made by your actual mom. But lately, Boston Market hasn't been hitting the same. The food's still decent, sure, but when grocery store hot bars offer similar meals for less, and with shorter lines, why bother? It gets worse. The company has been hit with lawsuits over wage theft and unsafe working conditions. That doesn't exactly scream family-friendly dining. Franchisees are frustrated, employees are leaving, and customers? They're just not showing up like they used to. Over 15% of Boston Market locations closed in 2024 alone. That's not just a bad quarter, that's a warning sign. And outside of a few die-hard fans, most people barely notice when one shuts down. They've tried to stay relevant. New marketing, updated menus, even digital ordering upgrades. But none of it feels fresh. Their branding is stuck in the early 2000s, their app isn't winning any awards, and their competition? Way stronger. Places like Panera, Chipotle, and even fast casual spots like Sweetgreen are stealing their lunch. Literally. Meanwhile, Boston Market keeps serving the same meatloaf while the world moves on. If they don't make a serious move soon, like a full rebrand, better marketing, or at least a reason for people to care again, this homestyle haven might go cold turkey. If you miss those combo trays, Now might be the time to grab one last bite before it's gone for good. Let's talk about TGI Fridays, the place that used to mean thank God for a reason. Neon lights, after-work drinks, wings, and mozzarella sticks. It was the Friday night escape for so many. But now, the vibe is less TGIF and more WTF. The menu hasn't changed since the Bush era, literally. Appetizers still look like they were designed by a 2004 committee. Cocktails taste like sweet syrup with a splash of regret. And the decor? Think 1990s office party, but somehow even more dated. They tried to make a comeback. Rainbow drinks, dessert towers, a whole Gen Z rebranding push. But it didn't land. Because let's be honest, when you're trying to win over TikTok teens with neon straws and breaded jalapenos, you've already lost. Over 20% of TGI Fridays locations have closed in the last 3 years. Not just slow weekends, full-on shutdowns. Franchisees are calling it quits. Customers are choosing newer spots with fresher food and better lighting. And here's the kicker. The competition isn't just other chains. Fast casual places are stealing their thunder. Even neighborhood bars feel more authentic than a corporate Fridays. No amount of mozzarella sticks can fix that kind of identity crisis. They're still open in some places, still serving those same boneless wings and loaded potatoes. But unless they pull off a total overhaul, new menu, new branding, new everything, this Friday might be their last. Let's talk about Chuck E. Cheese, the place that used to feel like a birthday party wonderland but now feels more like a time capsule from 2005. You remember it, right? Loud music, sticky floors, animatronic rodents singing off-key covers. It was chaos, but it was our chaos. But let's be real. Today's kids don't care about tokens and robotic mice. They've got iPads, Fortnite, and TikTok dances. Parents? They want clean floors, good food, and maybe 5 minutes of peace. Chuck E. Cheese is struggling to offer any of that. Since their bankruptcy in 2020, they've been limping along. Debt piled up. Locations closed. The ones still open? A lot of them are showing serious wear and tear. Safety concerns? Yep. Outdated games? Double yep. And that whole fun zone vibe feels more desperate than exciting. They tried to pivot, even launched a line of frozen pizza for grocery stores. That didn't go well. It confused everyone. Meanwhile, newer family-friendly spots like Dave & Buster's or even local arcade bars are winning big time. They've got better food, cleaner vibes, and no creepy singing rats. Franchisees are bailing. Birthday bookings are down. And unless they pull off a full rebrand, think new look, fresh menu, maybe even ditching the mouse, this childhood staple might not make it past 2026. If you miss the madness, now might be the time to grab one last slice of pizza and play one final game of skee-ball. Because soon, Chuck E. Cheese could be nothing more than a weird dream from your past. Let's talk about Outback Steakhouse, the place that used to mean big steaks, bold flavors, and that iconic bloomin' onion. Remember walking in, feeling like you were stepping into the Australian outback, even if you had no idea where that actually was? It was the go-to spot for date nights, family dinners, and anyone who thought surf and turf sounded fancy. But here's the thing. Outback's steakhouse model is getting cooked. Beef prices are rising, and their answer has mostly been raise menu prices. That might work if people still cared enough to show up. But younger diners, they don't see Outback as a treat. They see it as outdated. Older customers, cutting back. And the digital experience? Way too little, way too late. In late 2024, Outback announced 50 closures. That's not just trimming the fat, that's a sign something's seriously wrong. Even with fewer locations, it's unclear if the brand can turn things around fast enough. The vibe feels tired. The menu hasn't changed much. And when fast casual spots offer better quality for less, why would anyone choose a bloated bill and a long wait? If Outback doesn't reinvent itself soon, and we're talking now, this Aussie classic might be saying goodbye before we even realize it's gone. If you miss that onion, now might be the time to grab one last bite before it's history. Let's talk about Buffalo Wild Wings, or as most of us know them, B-dubs. Once the ultimate game day destination, Now a place where $20 buys you a dozen wings and half the TVs are showing soap operas. It used to be the spot. You'd grab your crew, pile into the booth, order a bucket of Dubs with a side of fries, and watch the big game on massive screens with cold drinks in hand. But lately, not so much. Wing prices have gone through the roof. And guess what? B-dubs pass those costs straight to the customer. Result? Fewer people walking through the door. Alcohol sales, once their main cash cow, are down. Younger diners aren't feeling the sports bar vibe like before, and local wing joints are beating them on both price and flavor. Franchisees are reporting losses. Some are even closing up shop. The menu hasn't changed enough to keep things fresh. The vibe feels tired. And unless they make some serious moves, like updating the menu, fixing the pricing, and bringing back that game day magic, this chain might be losing more than just a few customers. B-dubs isn't done yet, but they're definitely losing their sauce. If they don't flip the script soon, this fan favorite could be calling time out for good. Let's talk about IHOP, the pancake palace that used to mean breakfast bliss. You know the drill. Stacks of fluffy flapjacks, crispy bacon, and that 24/7 promise that no matter how late or early it was, IHOP had your back. But here's the thing. Pancakes aren't so cheap these days. Eggs are up, milk is up, even syrup costs more. And suddenly that all-day breakfast spot feels a little less affordable.